Um, you want God to take you to the nations without spiritual dealings. How do you think that is possible? You want God to use you for your generation, but yet you are not mature spiritually. How do you think that is? How do you think that is possible? God, take me to Brazil. Take me to Brazil. Take me to Brazil. Without spiritual maturity, you will lose your zeal. You will lose your zeal. You see, God must work on you before he works with you. That's one thing we must understand. Your zeal is not enough. You need maturity. Your zeal is not enough. You need spiritual dealings because it is those spiritual dealings that will give your zeal a direction. That's the truth. So before you begin to pray that God should take you to the world, God should use you for your generation, you must first ask God for a body. It is those burdens that God places on your heart that marks the beginning of spiritual dealings in your heart. It is those burdens that the Lord places on your heart that will mark the beginning of spiritual dealings in your life. That's how it works. Take me to Brazil. You will lose your zeal if you are not spiritually matured. There are many people that are doing well, but the moment the spiritual door opens to them, they began to misbehave. Suddenly, what they were not doing before they were doing it, now they began to turn their back against God. What is supposed to be a blessing is now looking like a curse because they are not mature. Good things can only be maintained and sustained by those that are mature spiritually. Even when God gives you something good, if you are not matured enough to handle it, it may end up looking like a curse. Many people they made what God has done to them, what God has done for them to look like a punishment from God. God has actually helped them, but because they are not mature, they now transform that help into a punishment. So instead of their generation celebrating them, now their generation will now begin to question God on their behalf. Lord, why have you done this? Meanwhile, that thing is supposed to be a blessing. So what does that mean? It means that a man that is not matured, we always judge the life of a person that is not matured. We always judge God to be unfaithful. So you want to go to the world. My question is to where? To where exactly when you are not spiritually matured? You cannot represent God rightly when you have not submitted yourself to spiritual dealings. What are the dealings of God upon your life? That's the first question. What are the things you are doing that you are actually doing them because it is God that mandated you to do it? You must have at least three things in your life, that you are doing because God said you should do it. What are the things you are not doing because God said you should not do them? You must have at least three in your life. Three things you are doing because God said you should do them. Three things you are not doing because God said you should not do it. What are those things? You don't have anything that God said you should do or God said you should not. I mean, personal instructions from God. That's the sign of a man that has daily. You don't have those things in your life and you claim you want to go to nations. You will lose your zeal. How many people left Nigeria and they traveled to another country and they began to misbehave with ladies? Nobody will know. They will just keep it to themselves as a secret sin. That holy preacher has traveled abroad to become adulterous. That holy preacher has traveled overseas to become, a fornicator. He has traveled overseas to become defiled. It's not just to brothers. I'm talking to both brothers and sisters. It's not enough to cry that the Lord should take you to the world. Let God work on you first. When God works on you and is done with what he's doing, he by himself will advertise you to your generation. So trying to advertise yourself is a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Let God work on you. And when he's done, he will take you to the world. I pray the Lord will help us in the name of Jesus.